My name is Nathan. I'm 42 years old, a staff sergeant with the 82nd Airborne. 13 years of marriage ended for me not in a courtroom, not across a kitchen table, but in a PDF attachment. The divorce papers arrived by email while I was still deployed in Kandahar. I'd been gone for 4 months when Becky decided she was done waiting. The subject line read, "Let's be adults about this." The body of the message was 3 sentences. She'd already filed, she'd already drained our accounts, and she'd already moved her new boyfriend, Jeremy, into our house in Spokane. I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop, took a shower in the communal stalls, pulled on my uniform, and went about my day as if nothing had happened. That night I wrote back a single word: understood. No begging, no anger, no threats, just acknowledgement. The truth was, I wasn't blindsided. 6 months before deployment, the cracks had begun to show. Becky stopped asking about my day. She stayed late at the dental office. She claimed she was hitting the gym but never looked like she'd been. New clothes appeared. Passwords on her phone suddenly changed. I wasn't the kind of man to snoop or play detective, but I wasn't naive either. I made quiet moves. I rented a small storage unit and placed everything that mattered inside: my birth certificate, VA loan papers, marriage license, the deed to the house, my grandfather's watch, my mother's silver set. I opened a separate bank account and routed a small part of my pay there. Not enough for her to notice, just enough so that, if the bottom fell out, I wouldn't be left with nothing. The night before I deployed, she hugged me at the airport and said, "Stay safe." Her eyes were dry, like she was saying goodbye to a coworker, not a husband going off to war. I should have known then. 2 weeks after that email in Kandahar, I was in the mess hall when my phone buzzed. A bank notification. $88,500 withdrawn. Everything we had saved was gone. The bank confirmed Becky had been siphoning money in small amounts for weeks before sweeping the rest the day after I left. Standing there, surrounded by soldiers calling wives, kids, parents, living normal lives, I realized mine had been erased. In that moment, grief turned into something colder. Not rage, not heartbreak. Strategy. At 0500 the next morning, I reached out to an old Army buddy, James, who was now a lawyer. When I returned to U.S. soil months later, I didn't go home. I checked into a cheap motel under a false name and met James at a diner outside Spokane. He laid out the truth. My wife had forged my signature on a refinance application, pulled $330,000 against our home, and listed Jeremy as co-applicant. Jeremy, who already had DUIs and a fraud charge. It became clear. My wife had not only betrayed me, but tied herself to a man running a scheme. Together they had tried to bury me while I was half a world away. And so I made my choice. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't fight. I would let Becky and her boyfriend hang themselves with their own greed. Piece by piece, we built the case. Bank officers paled when they saw the forged signatures. Police confirmed prescription pads stolen from Becky's dental office were found in Jeremy's possession. The FBI connected Jeremy and his partner, a crooked real estate agent named Daniel Spencer, to multiple schemes targeting military families. What Becky had called being adults about this was in fact fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. I never confronted her directly. Instead, I watched from a distance as Jeremy and Spencer walked straight into a trap, caught on live security feed trying to list my home for a quick cash sale. When the FBI agents swarmed the house, Becky showed up just in time to watch her new life collapse on the front lawn. She claimed she hadn't known. She swore Jeremy had convinced her I was hiding money, that the refinance was his idea. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. In the end, she agreed to my terms: full restitution, forfeiture of any claim to my house or my pension, and a signed confession admitting she had forged my name. In exchange, I didn't push for charges. 6 months after that first email in Kandahar, Our divorce was finalized. No fault. Clean break. Jeremy was sentenced to 8 years. Spencer got 12. The FBI later told me they'd uncovered at least 11 other military families targeted by the same scheme. My case had given them the pattern they needed to shut it down. I hadn't set out to be anyone's hero. I just wanted what was mine. But sometimes life takes your private fight and turns it into something bigger. I sold the house a year later, too many ghosts in those walls, and bought a small cabin outside Missoula, Montana. 10 acres, a creek running behind it, no neighbors for miles. I retired early from the Army, got a German Shepherd named Scout, picked up carpentry jobs here and there. For the first time in decades, I lived quietly, honestly. One evening I opened a letter from a Navy wife in Fort Worth. She and her husband had nearly lost everything to the same scam, but because of my case, the FBI stopped it. "You don't know me," she wrote, "but you saved our home. Thank you for fighting back, when it would have been easier to just walk away." I pinned that letter to my refrigerator. On the nights when memories pressed too heavy, I read it again, and I reminded myself, something good had come from all the wreckage. Becky moved back to Oregon. I no longer hated her. Truthfully, I didn't feel much at all. She made her choices, I made mine, and as for me, I was finally building something no one could forge, steal, or betray. Something that was just mine.